Recording. All right, Twitch streamers, this one's for you. Starting May 1st, the Partner Plus program is going to become the Plus program. Monetization is going to change, offering affiliates some of what partners have already been getting, with a 60-40 split being available at 100 plus points for 3 consecutive months, or a 70-30 split at 300 plus points for 3 consecutive months. The $100 cap for payout is officially history, effective today. And just to clarify, points on Twitch are not as simple as 1 point per sub. There are 3 tiers, and they break down like this. Tier 1 is a 1 point per sub. Tier 2 is 2 points per sub. Tier 3 is a whopping 6 points per sub. So, what are you going to do to incentivize your audience to ramp up their subs to Tier 2 or Tier 3? Twitch already offers a built-in function to reward tiers with exclusive emotes, but what else can you be doing? Things like exclusive Discord roles, access to private channels, one-on-one game sessions, maybe merch discounts. Let me know what you think you can offer. Now the bad news, a lot of people have been predicting that the Prime subs would be going away after Dan Clancy declared that Twitch was not a profitable company. Prime subs are still here, but get ready for a twist. They are now going to be at a fixed rate per country, so they may not be worth a lot, or even a little for some people. So yeah, get ready to see that drop. And as always, come join me on twitch.tv/SamProof, Fridays at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and let's talk about it. In other streaming news, newcomers to the LiveSpace platform is LiveSpace. They are opening their Boost program for February to 1,000 creators who will get access to a 100% revenue split for an entire year. To be eligible, you must stream to an existing platform with an average of 20 viewers over the last 60 days, or have a TikTok account with 10,000 followers or a YouTube account with 10,000 followers. You must be 18 years or older, and a few other things that you can find out on their website, but I believe that is the majority of it. So go check that out. You must stream 24 hours or more each month on 7 or more unique days streamed. You must have 10 non-subscriber LiveSpace posts per month. It's kind of like a community post. And promotion of your LiveSpace streams to your community and on your social channels. So you must be actively promoting LiveSpace to get in on this. Check it out. And good luck, everyone.
Hi everybody, and welcome to the video and live streaming show. My name is John Lacey, and as always I'm joined by Sam Proof. Today on the show we're talking about all the various options that you have available to you in the year 2024 to go live in terms of mobile and desktop and apps and multicasting services and all of the things. And we're going to be talking about that today on the show. Some of the things you might want to keep in mind in terms of gear and technology and the purpose of your stream and where your audience actually lives. So hang around for that. That's coming up today. But we are going out live to all the various places. So if you are watching live, let us know in the chat where you're watching from. And, you know the drill. Hashtag Team Live if you're joining us live, or you can do hashtag Team Replay if you're watching this later on. But Sam, how are you going? How's your week been?
It's been a busy week. I've been running around doing a million things. Like now we have streaming news. We'll see if we keep that up every week. It might be, depending on how busy things are, it may be, a case-by-case basis. I've been prepping for our big Super Bowl event, February 11th, over at Cute Avalanche. So more on that to come. And I was interviewed recently by the guys over at IFTTT, which you can find on their YouTube channel, or go to my Sam Proof YouTube channel, and there's a link from there, from my community tab to their video. and so on. And so it's just so many things. And then what? Tomorrow we have another one. Is that tomorrow already? Jeez.
That is tomorrow, yes. Tomorrow
Yeah.
we'll be on the huddle with Walter Strong III, talking all about OBS, so that's going to be exciting too. I've actually got yet another live interview happening on
Nice.
Tuesday on LinkedIn. So I mean, it's funny. Nobody wants us for like entire years, and suddenly we're in demand. I love it. Anyway, let's check in with the chat before we do get started. Saeed's watching from Germany. Sent from his Nokia 3210, which I don't know if that's a sincere thing or a joke, but we appreciate it nonetheless. Hello to Insomnia Doodles, who's joining us on Team Live as well. Saeed was asking if he was on the wrong stream. So
No.
Sam has created a few extra little bits for the show this week. So we're just, switching it up a little bit to make sure you're paying attention. Hello to CJ, who's joining us in the chat as well. Great to have everybody's company today. So today we are talking about, all the options. And I know there are a lot of options. And in some ways, in 2024, we're really spoiled for choice. There are so many destinations. There are so many pieces of technology. There are so many options. And I guess before we even get started, because I wrote about this in my Learn live streaming newsletter over on LinkedIn, couple of things I wanted to clarify. First of all, we sort of have desktop versus mobile, but the truth is we're really focusing on the device you might use to go live. But the truth is you can use multiple devices at the same time. You can do whatever you want, and there's no sort of right answer. I know a lot of people are very excited about the tools they use, and we're probably no exception to that. But really, what we want you to do is find something that's going to work for you at the end of the day. But I guess the other thing that got me thinking about this topic in particular was that somebody from a streaming service reached out to me and asked me to try out their software, which is basically the idea behind it is to do an entire production via your phones and your tablets, and to do it all wirelessly. And to be honest, I'm not going to talk about that software today because I really haven't had a chance to put it through its paces. But it did kind of get me thinking about, why I do things the way I do and what other options there might be out there. So I just really wanted to put that up front because, I think sometimes people don't really know me and they jump to some really interesting conclusions. So I just want to clarify that up front. But let's talk about, some of the considerations that you might want to think about in terms of this. And like I said, we're just going through a few things. I guess before we actually even get started, just don't overwhelm yourself, especially if you're a beginner. There are lots of things you could do, but let's focus on the things that might be most useful. But Sam, I guess, first of all, let's talk about the purpose of your stream. So what is it that you're actually trying to accomplish? And how might that actually play into the choices you make with all of this?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously that's going to be different for everybody, and that is a personal choice or a business choice that needs to be made. And I think the way to get to the purpose of your stream is to first sort of assess your assets, where you're already doing things and where those things are being seen the most, and then kind of, align that with the purpose of your stream. So whether it is, a sales thing or an e-course or just a community driven like chat based thing, how is that going to play into then where that community is? So if you're someone who's actively out there making LinkedIn content, is LinkedIn Live going to be the place to do it? And then how do you utilize that to drive KPIs like, sales or signups or whatever it is?
Absolutely. And I notice Insomnia Doodles mentioned in the chat that my volume might be a bit softer than yours, so I'm kind of adjusting things in real time.
Right.
So hopefully
That's fine.
that's okay, but let me know in the chat. That's good to know. And hello to Walter Strong III, who's joining us in the chat. And as we said earlier, we will be on his show tomorrow talking about OBS Studio. So that's really useful to keep in mind. So I guess, my feeling about video platforms generally is that, or even just social media destinations generally, is they have different personalities and they sort of attract different people. So, you already alluded to LinkedIn Live. That's a place where we're seeing a lot of business to business and professionals and that kind of thing. Whereas, I think I spend an obscene amount of time scrolling TikTok, but I only do that for fun. I don't really go there with the intention of learning anything. So I mean that might be another thing to consider as well, but definitely just seeing where your audience naturally gravitates. We'll talk about some of the methods you might use to actually go live in the third segment. But I guess the thing is, if you are starting from scratch, it's you probably don't have any idea where this stuff might work. So again, there's a certain degree of just trying things out and seeing how you go. But if you do have the ability to multi-stream to multiple destinations, you can sort of go back and look at those stats and get a sense of where people are, where they're commenting, where they're interacting, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I would say if you're just getting started with streaming, multicasting, if you can handle it, it can be a bit of an extra load on top of whatever you're doing mentally, right? Like if you can handle it, multicasting is a great idea for someone who's just starting out. Give it, 4 to 6 months and then like review the data, like see, is it worth still going? Do I get enough spread on different platforms? Is there one platform that is definitively like 50% or more of my audience? And maybe I just double down on that.
And I guess like that's one of the things I talk about on my podcast, Build a Presentation Muscle. Like you have to walk a very fine line between analyzing the stats 24/7 and focusing on what you're actually creating and promoting it. So I always talk in terms of just protecting your inner creator, and especially on platforms like YouTube where you do have a lot of really granular data. Like sometimes that can be insightful and instructive, and other times that can just be really depressing. You're like, I made a 30-second video and most people watch 2 seconds of it.
Right.
So take that with a grain of salt too. I guess the other thing I was thinking of, if you are just somewhere and you need to get information out in real time, often reaching for the phone is a great way of actually just starting, because if you've got a connection, a data connection that's fairly reliable, you can sort of just go live and start talking and start showing stuff. And especially if it's something that is deeply newsworthy, I think that can be a good way to go. But if you are doing something that maybe is a little bit more produced, and I sort of alluded to a tool, and again, I'm not going to mention too much about it this week because I really haven't had a chance to put it through its paces. But there are certainly options in terms of doing more produced things on the phone. And Sam and I, obviously we're very passionate about the OBS Studio stuff. And I kind of identify as a desktop creator to start with. So there are lots of things that my setup allows me to do that would be much more difficult to do on a phone. But then I know people that have never done anything on their desktop. They've done everything on their phone, and they can run their entire business from their phone potentially.
Yeah. And then also you can totally do mobile streaming from your desktop at this point, like due to, with certain plugins and things like that. So you could do a fancy sort of vertical stream, but I think you touched on, a really good sort of, delineating line of the difference, where it's like mobile is very fast and easily accessible, and you can just get on and just start talking to your audience. So if you're just doing, a stream for the sake of really just talking to your audience and having a conversation, mobile is great. You don't have to worry about fancy setups or anything like that. And it's, like one click and you're there. But if you are looking to do something with a higher production value, you have specific things you want to show off, like slides or websites, or, do like an in-depth how-to tutorial, then you are probably looking at doing something on desktop through, software like OBS. Not to say that you can't do that on mobile, but it would be easier on a desktop.
Absolutely. So I guess, and Seeds just mentioned, he still cannot wrap his mind around mobile live streaming. If I want to do anything than just talk into the camera, like sharing something.
Sure.
And I guess, anecdotally, it's funny, StreamYard have released a iOS app. And it's funny because people are so excited about this iOS app, but Gage is very polite and diplomatic about this, but the only reason this app exists is because the default browser on the iOS apps is, Apple's Safari, and it doesn't always keep up with the technology. So, people have been using that, and it seems to be working quite well for guests to join. But I guess then you start getting these other questions like, how do I share my screen via the mobile? And it's like you really can't via that piece of technology right now. So it really does depend on what kind of content you're sharing and how you're sharing it. And I guess the other thing, it's not to say that you can't record videos and share them as part of your streams. And often I kind of recommend that because there are some things that are just too difficult to do live or to do in real time. And especially if you're sharing potentially sensitive information and you need to make sure certain things are cropped out or blurred out, it's much better to be prepared in that way and not just take a gamble on sharing things live. But I mean, we do have all these options, and I guess as much as we're going to be exploring different ideas and sharing what's worked well for us, at the end of the day, there's really no substitute for people trying things out and just seeing how that goes for them.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's funny because, you spoke about mobile and desktop, and I wrote about this in the Learn live streaming newsletter over on LinkedIn, and somebody was like, why not both? And I'm like, by all means, do both. But I was thinking more in terms of the device you're using to go live. But even then, you could have the desktop going and the phone going. And before the Instagram Live Producer rolled out, and we'll talk about this in more detail later too, I literally, for a few weeks, just had me on my phone, and it was like maybe a third of the entire show. And I actually had a bit of paper on screen that says, for the entire show, go to johnlacey.com/live, which wasn't a great experience. And we'll talk about Instagram in more detail in a moment. But I guess that's the other thing, and Saeed makes a great point. So how about interacting with comments on mobile? I would be too afraid to touch my phone at all while being live. So this is a great point because, did you want to say something about that, Sam?
No, I was going to bring this up totally. So even when I do a mobile live stream, because I almost never use their apps, I also do have this sort of like, what is the interface? I don't know what everything does anymore. It's, been 3 months since I tried one of these. So I almost always also have the Instagram or the TikTok up on my desktop so I can actually monitor chat that way. Cause also it's too small and I'm old. But yeah, it's not a great experience for the streamer. For the viewer, it's pretty good, but not for the streamer.
And I guess the other thing too, like this is going to be such a niche reference that some of you may get, but I'm imagining most people won't. But if any of you know Toasters and Moose, and they're actually a fictional band in a music mockumentary that's on YouTube. They had a song called "Taste the Biscuit," which sort of does the meme circles on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube and elsewhere. And they often go live and do little concerts via TikTok and Instagram. But the thing that they've done, and they sort of explain this every time they go live, is they'll read out the comments because although they'll have a recording of the session, they won't remember who actually said things. So if you've asked for something that they might need to follow up on, they'll say your name and say what you said because they have no sort of written transcripts in that way that you might in desktop software.
Yeah, that's a really good point. All of the mobile apps don't have sort of that chat log, whereas like YouTube, if you turn it on, you can like look back at the archive and it's got, second for second exactly when that chat showed up.
Absolutely. And I know like for a lot of your streams, you literally have that being saved to the Discord in almost real time. So it's just another thing to keep in mind. But I think a lot of the time, a lot of the vertical Instagram, TikTok things, they're very much about the moments. They're really about interacting with the people that are in the chat, and they don't necessarily have a longer shelf life. So it's just another thing to keep in mind. So We're going to come back and talk about some of the gear that you might want to think about in terms of actually going live, whether you decide to do that on your computer or on your phone, or even a combination of the two.
Are you ready for the cutest sporting event of the year, the 5th annual Super Bowl, brought to you by Cute Avalanches, just around the corner, and we're thrilled to have you joining us for the special event. This year taking the field will be Otis, Eric, Amy, Ruby, Ola, and Maeve, with Coach Jean, the mama cat, watching from the sidelines and running the milk bar. This family of 7 were saved from the East Valley Animal Shelter in Los Angeles, California, and have been under our care since the babies were a mere 5 days old. And they're here with us just in time for the Super Bowl. At Cute Avalanche, our mission is to help support our local feline friends in need, and we're so proud to say that we have fostered over 180 cats and kittens, including several TNR missions, to help control the feline population in our area. We've also helped foster 1 dog. We've got 2 baby squirrels into other people's foster care, and last year we fostered our first one-eyed cat, immediately followed by our first fully blind cat, Monet. And we couldn't do it without the support of our amazing viewers like you, the Kitten Crew. Our goal for this year is to foster upward of 3 dozen cats and kittens, which will take us over 200 cats that we have fostered in our lifetime, specifically kittens under 8 weeks old that the shelters don't have the staff to care for and are frequently the first to be euthanized. So sit back, grab some treats, and get ready to be entertained by some of the cutest and cuddliest felines around. The Super Bowl starts February 11th at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 2 p.m. Eastern. Because we can't do this without you, your support and views help raise awareness to the work we're doing. So please share the link to our event, post it on your social media, and invite your friends and family to join us. You can even create your own watch parties. The main event runs about 2 hours, but the stream will be up for the entire 24 hours, letting you cheer on your favorite team of kittens with on-screen scores activated by your donations, which go toward food, litter, supplements, nutrients, toys, and so much more. You won't want to miss it, and you can get in on the caction early, right meow, by pre-donating through superbowl.com to receive a special tailgate perk with donation tiers that range from $1 to $50. We can't wait to see you on Twitch, YouTube, or your favorite streaming platform for the Super Bowl. Not enough puns in that.
And the kittens are amazing, but the puns are just terrible, Sam. They're just atrocious. I'm sorry. And if you want to learn more about that, you can head over to cuteavalanche.com. I would have put Super Bowl up there, but I wasn't really sure how many R's that were in that domain name. But there you go. You can certainly check that out. All right, so this is the video and live streaming show. Today we're talking all about the different options you have in terms of going live, whether you're using your mobile phone, whether you're going live from a desktop. And I guess right now, and again, there's yet another cat pun in the chat as well. I'm just going to ignore that for the moment. But let's talk about some of the gear that you might want to think about using. And I guess first of all, and I know these might seem obvious, but I think it's worth unpacking. First of all, we need a decent internet connection. So whether that is something that's been physically connected to the router, whether that's a power line adapter to use the electricity circuits through your home to connect to it, that could be Wi-Fi, and I guess or even a mobile data connection. And I guess in terms of mobile devices, that's pretty much what you're going with. To the best of my knowledge, there's not a single mobile device that will support, well, certainly not a phone that will support a Cat5 connection, for example. So right. I think in some ways, and to be honest, when this company approached me to try out their products, that was the first concern that I had, was that I don't know how great my Wi-Fi is, to be honest. And there's always that danger that if you're lagging a little bit and maybe you're using multiple cameras at the same time, maybe there is some disconnect between the reception of the phone that's acting as a camera and maybe the tablet that's working as a bit of a mixer. That could be a problem too. And yes, I did say Cat5, so that one's kind of on me. But yeah, so I guess that's something to keep in mind. But obviously we also need a camera and a microphone. And again, your phone can serve as both of these things, or you could have something sort of separate. Sam, I get the feeling that most of the stuff that you do like most of the stuff I do is from desktop. But do you have a lot of mobile streaming experience?
Um, yeah, I mean, it is definitely from desktop. I've done a little straight from the phone here and there. Um, it's funny, I do have accessories. I have, a USB, not a USB, a Lightning uh, lav mic that plugs into the
Hmm.
phone, and a little light and stuff. But most of the time when I use those accessories, it's straight for video. I don't even bother with those on the live. Because I don't know, something about live and mobile for me is much more random and like less planned out. Like if I'm going to sit and plan something, I'm definitely doing it on desktop.
Absolutely. So I guess, one of the things, and Walt's got a great question. We'll come to that in a second. But I mean, there are all kinds of accessories and hardware. My big thing is that I kind of need something that is easy to switch on and just go live pretty instantly. I know a lot of people have kits that they can set up and tear down, but if I had to do that every single day,
Yeah.
I would just lose so much time. So, and I mean, I know I've spoken about this a lot in the past, but certainly in terms of my desktop setup, I've got these Elgato key lights that are in the background. They come off the Elgato multi-mount system, which essentially is just this bar that's supporting the light itself. And then off that, I have a teleprompter unit. Inside the teleprompter is my Sony ZV-E10 camera. And then underneath it, I've got a little Feel World monitor just for the teleprompter specifically. And those two arms, they're just called Elgato Strong Arms, and they just come off the main unit. So in a lot of ways, I'm looking for something that I can just hit a few buttons and go live, because there's I'm not going to lie. It's some weeks I'm not feeling it. I don't want to be on camera, and
Right.
any excuse to not follow through can be quite damaging to my processes and my output. So I've got that as well. I mean, I have spoken about some of and again, in terms of just this idea of having a rig, I have been playing a little bit with this mobile arrangement. So again, this is I've got a video mic from Rode here. I've got an Elgato Keylight Mini, and it's just off this this I think it's a Small Rig brand phone cage. So in some ways, I'm kind of looking for something that I can just that's really ready to go, and like in that example, that's always sort of in a vertical orientation.
Yeah.
And that really came from the time when I was playing with Instagram, even though I think I've ultimately decided Instagram is not for me. Like no one over there cares about anything I do. And I don't think there's much organic reach there either. But I guess the other thing too, and I got this because it was dirt cheap, but essentially this is often what a lot of people started with like 5 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
was a ring light that had two phone holders. So the idea here was that the camera on the back of the phone is much higher quality, but you also want to see the chat. So you'd basically have one phone in one direction and one phone in the other, so you could do a little bit of both, and just a little bit of lighting there. This one actually has a bit of a microphone stand, which I don't know how obvious that is from that photo, but I
Yeah.
guess, I think in terms of these rigs that I can sort of set up and use pretty easily. And that's just how I work. But what are some of the other things that might be worthwhile, whether you're going live on desktop or mobile, do you think, Sam, in terms of gear?
Um, so yeah, I mean, you have like the Rode mic, but obviously you could also get, like I was mentioning before, a lav mic if you want to be moving around a little bit more. If you aren't just sitting down doing something, getting a gimbal would be great, so that you're not just making everyone nauseous by like spinning around endlessly and like jerking the camera all over the place. So I think those are big helps. But also, yeah, I mean, unless you're specifically doing like, I'm doing a tour of the zoo, having a dedicated space where it's like, even though you're not doing a desktop stream, just having a dedicated space where you can control things like light and what the scene looks like is always good to do. I think both of us are kind of pooping on mobile streaming, and it's not for us maybe, but it is out there and available to other people. And I've seen some people on Instagram who do quite well with it, and there are people who are very active on Instagram. And yeah, they have that sort of dedicated spot where they can just plop down and be like, let's do it and let's go. And maybe they are secretly actually doing it through desktop, but you wouldn't know. Like, it seems probable that it is just like they put their phone in a cradle and they're good to go. So yeah, I think those are all important things to have ready.
Absolutely. And I guess the other thing, and Sam kind of alluded to this a little bit in terms of the gimbals, but even just the mini tripods, I can't express my love enough for the mini tripods. And some of these are also sort of extendable selfie sticks. So again, if you are out in the wild and you're filming yourself from some distance, that'll give you a little bit of room to work with. And these things are relatively cheap. And I have such a collection of them because invariably, if I want to get a particular shot, some of them work better for others. Occasionally, I'll just prop them up on stacks of books or boxes or whatever I have lying around, or a bookshelf or something. But they can be really good. And I guess it's funny you talking about the shaky camera. We actually had an Australian film critic that, like, any time there was any kind of Jurassic Park camera wobble, just hated every moment of that. And I guess if we take that to an extreme, like, there are people with accessibility concerns where, you know, too much motion is going to make them ill. So,
Oh, sure.
again, especially if you are doing like a gaming stream with a lot of weird lighting and stuff, it's probably important to disclose that up front, just so people can make choices that best support them.
That's a good point.
Okay. Yep. All right. I guess, you know, and you know, Sam sort of mentioned that maybe we're not the biggest proponents of mobile streaming. I don't want to discount it completely. I just haven't had the time to play with it. And I definitely will now that I've got that rig and access to some other software. But again, I guess my concern, and it's funny because I know there is industry standard wireless technology for video and audio, but it always makes me a little bit nervous when somebody shows up with Bluetooth headphones or a wireless mic. Like, there's always that danger that the signal can be lost for any period of time. So I really like to be physically wired into almost everything. And even, like, I must admit, I've got a wireless keyboard and a mouse, but literally everything else is physically connected, including my internet connection. So again, I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with that, but just be aware of your internet connection. If things go wrong, and things will always go wrong, I think as long as you communicate that to your audience and just let them know, and maybe say, hey, you know, I know people who have literally lost all the electricity in their house or their street, or been in a hurricane and stuff. If you can communicate that to people are pretty forgiving. So, I mean, I wouldn't stress about that too much, but to the extent that you can sort of manage some of those factors. Obviously, Sam mentions lighting as well. And again, lighting is important. Your ability to be seen on camera has a lot to do with how well lit you are. And that can just mean, you know, positioning yourself so that the light source is in front of you, whether that's an artificial light, whether that's just a large window with some natural daylight. Obviously, if you're working at nighttime, you're definitely going to need to use artificial light to be seen. But those are just some of the considerations that you might want to keep in mind. So we're going to come back and talk about some of the methods. And when I say that, I do definitely mean some, because there are so many. We'll talk in quite general terms. But we'll come back and do that in just a second.
And then I looked at the first assessment, and the first assessment was record a 5-minute video. And it was a pretty simple introduction of yourself. There was nothing exciting. I didn't have to research. It was just a 5-minute warm up. And I freaked out. That course is still sitting in the cupboard beside me. I see that stack of papers and I almost rock in the corner. It cost me a lot of money to sign up, and I threw the whole course away.
And that's just your weekly reminder that being on camera is a very unnatural act, and don't feel bad if it doesn't come to you naturally. You do need to put yourself out there and sort of really have that exposure therapy is how I like to describe it. But that's a clip from my podcast, Build a Presentation Muscle, which you can learn more about over at johnlacey.com. This is the video and live streaming show. Today we're talking all about the different options and considerations you have in terms of going live in 2024. Obviously, we can do things on our phones, we can do things on our tablets, we can do things with our computer. I think now we're going to talk about some of the methods by which we might actually want to go live. And I guess you know, we've mentioned it before, but it's worth revisiting. Where does your audience sort of naturally live?
Yeah.
And maybe you don't have an audience yet, but you have a sense of where similar people might be. And do you have any sort of general recommendations in terms of making that kind of evaluation, Sam?
Yeah, I mean, for starters, like, once you've figured out what it is you want to be talking about, what your niche is, find out where other people like you are posting content, whether or not that's video content or live stream content, but just, see what that landscape looks like. And, in the case of like gamers, clearly it's Twitch, but is that really where you want to go? Because maybe there's too many people. Like if you're a Minecraft or a Fortnite gamer, maybe you don't want to go to Twitch or YouTube, where those are like giant verticals that have thousands and thousands of channels streaming at any given time, and something like Trovo works out better. So like really analyze like the playing field and the competition and make an informed choice of, this is where a majority of that community is, and maybe it's saturated or not too saturated, and that's where I should go. I will always default to like YouTube is the starting place. If you have no other choice, start at YouTube. It is the second largest search engine, so that's something at least.
And I think like this might be worth unpacking for this segment, but in a lot of ways, Sam and I are very similar, very kindred spirits, but in other ways, we're actually quite different. And this show, for example, when we go live on a Friday or Saturday, depending on your part of the world, I only go out live to YouTube and LinkedIn. And later the following week, I will actually repurpose this and send it off to my Facebook page and Twitter. And I told Sam this a few weeks ago, but the whole pretext of those streams is basically to say, this is not a great experience. You've missed out. Come to YouTube. Subscribe to YouTube.
Right.
Click the bell on YouTube. Everything wonderful happens on YouTube. So you're missing out. Come and join us there. So, I mean, there are opportunities to sort of repurpose the content, but also repurpose the content with a desire to push them to your preferred platforms.
Yeah,
and I know sometimes people don't want to leave where they naturally live, but sometimes you can move them. But go ahead, Sam.
I think that's a really good strategy. And like what we were talking about earlier about multicasting is you give it 4 or 6 months and really look at what the, data tells you, and like, where is your home, your HQ? If you don't know already, like where you want to push people, use the data to be like, okay, this is where I get the most people. So maybe adopting a strategy like John has, where now you're narrowing your scope of live streaming and then repurposing those things for the other platforms to push them to that main focal point, is a great idea. And even within that, if you are doing something like YouTube, where it's also a VOD hosting platform, having like, one or just a few, like a handful of videos that are like the main videos you're trying to get people to see, you can create a strategy within that too, which then funnels everything to that, because there's so many different avenues to like redirect traffic once they're already on your YouTube.
And it's interesting, and I guess this might be a little bit outside of the scope of what we're talking about today, but when I look at my, my weekly reports from YouTube, my main traffic source is literally me pushing people to YouTube from other platforms. And some of that is embedded on websites and my LinkedIn newsletter. Yep. Some of that's on Twitter and Facebook and Threads and all the various places. If I've got something to promote, I just put it everywhere. And it's interesting because that does seem to work, and it seems so obvious, but the weeks where I remember to post the link 4 or 5 times, I get more views than I do when I only post it 1 or 2 times.
Yep.
So it's definitely worth keeping that in mind. But obviously, a lot of these apps, a lot of these video streaming destinations, if you are just going live to one place, you can often use the mobile phone app to go live there.
Yeah.
Instagram is a great example of this. Until quite recently, that was the only way for most people to go live, and you literally press a few buttons on your phone, you type in a title, and you choose your audience, and then you hit the button and you go live. And that's really easy for most people. And I guess that's the other thing. You and I, we're pretty nerdy. we're happy to be nerdy. But most people don't want to be overwhelmed by the tech, and they don't really want to think about it too much. They really just want to press the button and start talking to their audience.
Yep.
So I think that's a perfectly valid way of doing it. I believe you can do that on YouTube as well, but you do, I think, need a certain number of subscribers to unlock the ability to go live on the phone.
Oh yeah,
Again,
I'm not
it's
sure what
not
the
anything
barrier of entry on that is, but yes, you do have that ability
Yeah.
on the phone, or at least I do. And Twitch as well gives you that, and I think most major platforms at this point do have that. I would say that if you are, uncomfortable with the thought of like doing this and talking to people on screen, YouTube, Twitch, and Instagram all have the ability to sort of practice without an actual live audience. So you can stream on YouTube to a private channel, or on Twitch you do a test link, and on Instagram you set it to private, or it might be practice. It's practice, and then you can talk to yourself to your heart's content until you feel like you're ready for the big time.
And I mean, honestly, you could probably just turn on your camera app and just record a video locally too. But in some ways, like that's my prescription, and I have a whole episode of this on Build a Presentation Muscle. But it's start recording early and watch the recordings back until you're comfortable seeing and hearing yourself. And I know that's excruciating. I know even someone as experienced as Sam hates it. Like, you should see him twitch when his own promos are playing. But I think in some ways, like, you just need to get used to it. There's no substitute for the repetition of it. And I think at first, if you don't enjoy the experience of watching and hearing yourself, that's fine. But there'll come a point where you'll be pleasantly surprised how good you are in front of the camera. And you'll reach a point where you'll go, hey, that's really, that thing I just said is a really good tip. I can clip that out. I can throw it on social media and let people know about that. So I feel like getting over that fear of the camera is probably its own episode. And we might have even done one already. I'm kind of losing track these days.
Yeah.
But I guess, in terms of Instagram specifically, that's been the newsworthy thing lately, because they have rolled out their Instagram Live Producer software, which lets you go live via more traditional streaming tools, whether that's StreamYard or Restream or OBS or Atom Vertical, any combination of those sorts of things. Unfortunately, it does really seem like a fairly half-baked solution right now. It is so slow and laggy. I've literally seen musical performances where the audio just gets really high-pitched and then goes down an octave.
It catches up to itself, and it's terrible.
Yes. And I'm sure that's not great when people are just talking, but when they're performing music, it is just horrendous.
Yeah, it's not a great experience on either side. Like, the setup for it is way more complicated than just press two buttons and you're there. You got to go in, you create like a new Instagram event, make a new stream key, and you have to basically leave that window open on your desktop, because I have not been able to find it again. Like, if I've created it and closed it, I can't find it again to start the stream later, right?
No, literally, you have to leave it open.
Yeah, and that stream key is only good for 5 hours in one use.
Yeah. I must admit, I don't know too many people that are streamed for 5 or 6 hours in the way that Sam does.
Right.
But you do need to make sure that window is open while you're going live. That's the only place you'll be able to even see the comments. But the other thing too is you probably, depending on your computer and audio setup, you'll probably need to mute that tab as well.
Yes.
Because especially if your software is picking up the desktop audio, it will come back to you at some point, and there'll be enough lag that it'll be a really jarring experience, and you won't be ready for it. So we're really hopeful that Instagram gets better, but like I said earlier, I was motivated by a lot of FOMO. And once I started playing with it, I thought it's not really worth worrying about missing out on. Like, it's so not useful for my personal goals that I'm just going to leave it alone from now, probably. Yep.
So Twitch actually has both the mobile, straight from your phone ability to stream, but they also have their own desktop streaming scenario, which will do either vertical or horizontal, which lets you just automatically do almost an OBS style experience if you're only streaming to TikTok. But yeah, if you want to multicast, you can also do it through like the ATEM plugin. There's like a workaround. But yeah, it's a slightly better experience for the mobile thing. But again, unless you've got that audience there, I don't know if it's worth it at this point.
Yeah. And I guess the other thing, and I don't mean to be critical when I say this, but the thing that I alluded to earlier about me only going out live on 2 places and Sam, I think, often going live on 6 to 8 places, is that often 5 seconds before the show starts, Sam will be so madly checking things to see that they're working and pressing buttons to make sure that the signal goes from here to there. And I'm like, I really need you just to be present and focus here,
Right.
and stay with me. So, I mean, in some ways, I think there are trade-offs with everything.
Sure.
And I guess there's also the opportunities to repurpose that content later on. So again,
Yeah.
I think for beginners, don't overwhelm yourself. There are all kinds of things you could do, but think about the things that might be most useful, and sort of, by all means, extend those things once you get more comfortable. But I wouldn't necessarily start with 15 different destinations.
No. Yeah.
Okay, this question from Walter. So, for beginners starting out live streaming, what is the difference between download and upload speed?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, this is, I think, relatively simple for people to understand. But basically, download is anything you're receiving, and upload is anything you're sending. So in a situation like this live stream, I am uploading my signal to StreamYard, and then when I watch the playback, that is a download. So
Yeah.
generally, just really quick, generally, for streaming purposes, you want to have about like a 7 to 10 connection on the minimum side, but more than that is much better.
And admittedly, depending on where you are in the world, that might not be an option. And I know
Sure.
that Sam has much... It's weird because I think Sam has much better internet than I do, but he's also running the Kitten Cam 24/7. So
Right.
it's... you've got to consider those things. I guess what I do see anecdotally in a lot of Facebook groups is people with sort of 1 to 2 megabyte upload speeds are like, how can I do this? And I'm like, you really can't.
You don't
Like
try.
at that point, you just need to record offline and try to
Yeah,
upload a video,
it's-
and hopefully it won't time out.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what the math is on doing it at like 480, but maybe at like 2 or 3 megabytes per second, you could do a 480 stream. It's been a few years since I've needed to know that math.
And I guess, like, at the end of the day, you and I are in particular parts of the world and in particular socioeconomic things. Like, I have no doubt there are people in other parts of the world who have to be much more nimble and don't have the access to the kinds of technology that we do. I guess really just work with whatever you've got and test it out. And I feel like I keep saying this because there are so many gurus out there that'll tell you if you do 1, 2, and 3, your whole life will be perfect. But my understanding of the world is I try things out, I see how they go, and I refine based on that feedback. I don't think there is a silver bullet. I don't think there's any definitive answer here. We have a lot of tools.
Right.
Some of them are very simple, but you need to embrace the constraints that they offer you. Some of them are more elaborate and they come with their own learning curve. And it's really, where are you at the moment? What would you like to do? What are you comfortable with accepting? And, Restream Studio and StreamYard are both tools that we both recommend for beginners because they are relatively straightforward.
Yep.
And for a lot of people, that's all they'll ever need. Like, or they could just, go straight to Instagram on their phone. So we're talking about a lot of things just to give you a sense of what's available. But again, no pressure to do anything you don't want to do. You're an adult. We're not your boss or your parents. You can choose what you like.
Right.
All right, we're going to come back and talk about, whether you should, in terms of orientation, are we going vertical? Are we going horizontal? Let's think about that and explore some of the options.
If you've been watching us for a while, or this is your first time and you're thinking, Sam, John, this is great stuff, but I'm wearing a lot of hats already and I don't need to add this to my list of things that I'm doing, but I really want to live stream, I've got you covered. I've been a freelance technical director and stream operator for 20 years, and I can help you either with one-on-one counseling, setups of shows, or even run your whole show for you. Get in touch with me, samproof@gmail.com, or find out more at samproof.tv.
Okay. All right. So this is the video and live streaming show. We're going to talk rather briefly. And Saeed, being Saeed, is asking, is diagonal video the next big thing? I mean, it can be whatever you like. In some ways, we are constrained by rectangles and squares, but at the end of the day, you can make any kind of video that you want to make within those options. I guess in terms of and we talk a little bit about Atom vertical plugin for OBS Studio. It is literally free and it's kind of amazing. But for me, at the end of the day, I don't really, until quite recently, I haven't had anywhere to practice that with. I'm not popular enough on TikTok to have access to that. A lot of people have reached out to me to say, if you say you're a game streamer, the entry barriers for that are a lot lower, but I'm not, so I'm not really going to pretend in that way. But of course, the other option was sort of the Instagram live producer. And again, it's just so excruciating. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody. Yeah, it's just not worth it. So in some ways, I haven't thought about that too much. I often record in the vertical dock just to make shorts and reels and TikToks later on for repurposing. But I guess, Sam, like maybe if you can just tell us what you're doing. Like, are you actually streaming vertically anywhere at the moment? Or
I actually chose not to do that today, but normally when we do this stream, I do multicast using StreamYard to go out to a bunch of different platforms horizontally, and then I use the Atom plugin to go to both Instagram and TikTok, and I have to do it in different ways. So I stream directly to Instagram through the stream key on the Atom plugin. I have a very specific scene built out in OBS that shows me as a large figure, and then above me is a screen capture of us and this whole layout, and I have to bring in the Chrome audio into that. And then to do it with TikTok, I then have to, you right click on the Atom plugin video, select project a window. So I now have a window that has exactly what that looks like projected in its own thing. And then I open up the TikTok studio and I bring that in as a screen capture. So it's like a hack on a hack on a hack.
It is. And tomorrow when we're doing a beginner's OBS tutorial, don't blow people's minds with that level of detail.
We won't go into Atom at all.
So, I mean, obviously it isn't necessarily too straightforward. And I guess even with tools that are a little bit more simple, with, Restream Studio, you can be horizontal or vertical, not really both at the same time. And I think the same for StreamYard. Although you can do a horizontal stream, certainly in StreamYard, and it'll just squish it into the middle portion of a vertical canvas. Yeah, which again is not a great experience. And I think in some ways, if you do want to play with both of these mediums, it's probably worthwhile to do them. Just do the same content 2 different times. Like, that's honestly my recommendation. And I know, because I guess Walter is in the process of building a online course, and he's sort of documenting his journey via Instagram live, but not with the live producer. And we spoke about this earlier in the week. And like, it's not great. And I feel bad because I was really hoping it would be great, but it just really isn't. So I think in a lot of ways you do want to just grab your phone if you want to go to Instagram. And I guess the other thing I want to mention too, because somebody did leave me a comment about this over on LinkedIn, it's physically possible to go live vertically in YouTube.
Yes.
I don't know, like, it's not something I was particularly interested in doing, but apparently you can. And I guess if you're watching on a phone, it'll be a more natural phone holding position.
I assume
I'm told it's not as good in...
Yeah, I assume if you're a creator who primarily makes shorts, so your audience is mostly watching you on, a phone in vertical format, then streaming in vertical makes sense. But I don't know when I would ever want to do that myself on YouTube.
Yeah, okay, cool. And I guess that's the thing, like, there are a lot of platforms, and getting back to Saeed's joke, like there are a lot of platforms where you can really upload any size video you want, and it will be some sort of square or rectangle, but you can really make up your own dimensions.
Yeah.
I know on Instagram and even LinkedIn, just a straight up square video can be quite popular, but again, I don't see a lot of places you can do that in terms of live streaming, but who knows. I guess in some ways I'm kind of pretty comfortable in this traditional horizontal frame. Like this is something that Sam and I have been working with for really obscenely long times, and I'm just a grumpy old man set in my ways. So I'm happy to keep rocking this.
I was going to say, everything we've said has made us like shaking our fist at like the aspect, like get off my aspect ratio. Like that's exactly what that feels like. There is one thing I think I would like to try, which is YouTube does have the ability to stream in 360. You do obviously need a special camera for that. But their player is built to make that accessible to anyone who has, YouTube or the YouTube app. So I think that would be an interesting experience, given the right circumstances. Clearly, cats would be a great way to do that. I don't know why you would ever do that in a situation like this show. Doesn't seem to add anything to it. But yeah, I think if you have an interesting take on it, that might be a draw for people, a 360 stream, because that's pretty rare.
Yeah, and I guess that would be quite novel, and it's interesting, and I guess we've spoken about it before, but it certainly, I think on Twitch and YouTube, because you're streaming just a room with cats in it, you have special cameras, and you can put in chat commands and say move slightly to the left or to the right or up or down. So it all comes back to what you're hoping to achieve and how the tools can help you get there, I suppose. Okay. I just want to pick up on this, and I know we're running out of time rather quickly, but Saeed's saying it's easier to create vertical content out of a horizontal live stream than the other way around, I guess, speaking of repurposing.
For sure.
And it's funny because in OBS, and again, I don't want to go too deep in this, but I have the option to record both the vertical and the horizontal at the same time. And sometimes I've just worked, like what I would do is literally leave enough space for Sam's camera at the top of the vertical and just throw that in there on top. But I mean, in some ways, it's just as easy for me to record myself via the camera than the camera's internal storage, and then just drag that onto my computer and go from there. So, I mean, there's a lot of different ways of working. I guess on some level, as long as the thing you're capturing is of a decent quality and resolution, that you're not stretching it within an inch of its life to make it fit, and it doesn't get too pixelated, whatever you want to do is totally fine on that front. Okay, so this has been the video and live streaming show today. So Sam, as we begin to wrap up, can you let people know where they can find you and watch your content and do all that good stuff?
Yeah, head over to samproof.tv. You'll find all my social links at the top left there. Hit this QR code if you've got your phone and you're not watching a mobile. But if you didn't get enough cats today, head over to thecuteavalanche.com, and you can find our 24/7 stream as well as information about the Super Bowl, which is coming February 11th. Please join us on your favorite streaming platform and cheer on the cats, 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time.
Nice. And if you want to catch up with anything I'm doing, you can head over to johnlacey.com. And there are social links at the bottom of those pages, and articles and podcasts and videos and all other things. So you can check that out if you're really looking for something to catch up with. Tomorrow we are going to be talking to Walter Strong III on the Huddle. He's actually given you permission to go and be nerdy tomorrow, Sam. So I'm a little scared for the audience, but if you do want to catch up with us then, you can go to johnlacey.com/the huddle, and that will redirect you to his YouTube video. So we're really excited to talk about our favorite bit of software tomorrow on Walter's show, and we'll be back again next week. Next week, we're actually answering video and live streaming questions. So if you have any questions, let us know in any of the places that you might happen to be watching this. And also, because I like to do this, because every time I do this, somebody actually follows through, and I say like and subscribe wherever you're watching this show. And have a great week. We'll talk to you again soon, and take care, everybody.